And the Metropolitan Police have been accused of two-tier policing after a heavy-handed approach to marches on St George's Day yesterday in Whitehall, in contrast to their handling of pro-Palestinian protests every 2 weeks since October. Well, joining me right now to discuss this is Hamish Brown, MBE. He's a former Metropolitan Police Detective Inspector. Good morning to you, Hamish.
And good morning to you, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I've been looking at a lot of the videos of events in Whitehall yesterday with people marking the St George's Day festivities. It's very difficult to get to the bottom unless you can see one long video that starts from the beginning and goes to the end to see, was there provocation from people who were wearing their St George's flags and there maybe there were people who were out to cause trouble, or did the police just go in heavy-handed with the police horses and the riot shields first up? Very, very difficult to see. But there's already been some concern that even if there was trouble, that the sort of trouble was similar to what we've seen from some pro-Palestinian protests when the police stood by, just filmed it and stood by and did nothing. Are we seeing two-tier policing in this country where, depending on what you're marching or rallying or protest against, you'll get treated completely differently by the police on the day?
Yes, I think every case has to be taken on its own merits, or perhaps in this particular case, lack of them. And sometimes the softly approach will be better in the longer term. I suspect with the St George's Day parade or gathering, the police would have had intelligence that far-right extremists were going to be involved, those involved in problems at football matches, that sort of thing. And that's why they were kitted out in the way they were. But yes, they have left themselves open to this two-tier policing, and maybe, or perhaps they have, with the Palestinians, not gone as hard enough as they should have done. And I'm sure they're going to reconsider if they got that right.
But what would be behind that thinking? Because we've seen it before, haven't we? When, during the lockdown period in 2020, when Black Lives Matter protesters were blatantly in breach of the law, in terms of gathering more than 6 people, all the laws at that time, and then we had officers, taking the knee rather than dispersing people. Whether it was, in lockdown, anti-lockdown protesters were treated very, let's go with firmly. Let's be generous and say very, very firmly and dispersed, even when they weren't. Actually, I've been on a lockdown protest where people were not breaking the law. We've seen this again and again, to say with the pro-Palestinian demonstrations. We've seen this with women who were simply standing up for women's safety and rights. When we've had trans activists who have not been stopped when they have been abusive and aggressive and intimidating to women who are carrying out their democratic right to speak at Hyde Park Corner. Who makes those decisions? Is it the Met Chief? Is it a lower level? And why would they say, this group of people, we're going to go in heavy-handed, bring out the riot shields. This group of people, we're just going to stand back and video and hope for the best?
Yeah, well, the person who makes the decision is going to be the commander or the senior officer on duty on the day, and they'll have the relevant information they can get their hands on, which will include intelligence. But the overriding principle when dealing with any public order event is keeping the peace. That is absolutely essential. And how they go about doing that is entirely up to the police. Now, there's been well publicised events, and I don't want to lose myself on this, of the way a police sergeant spoke to the man wanting to cross the road and wasn't allowed to. But I think the officer felt if you go there, it's going to kick off. So he took that measure. I think rightly, the language could have been buried a little bit, or should have been. But he wanted to prevent that breach of the peace all going wrong. Now, clearly something happened at the St George's Day parade where the police felt they had to act, whereas the Palestinians, they stood off a little bit. It has attracted criticism, and I'm sure the police will review their tactics on that, because it is giving a misleading impression.
But why do they feel they have to act? Because a lot of people feel that what's been going on in the pro-Palestinian marches, which are seen actually, frankly, by a lot of us as anti-Semitic marches, and we've seen, of course, with the incident with Gideon Falter on April the 13th, that emerged in the last week, that actually, people are able to act with impunity, and it's only when there's an outcry afterwards that the police do act. And again, I was thinking Just Stop Oil again. Often it's only when the public have an outcry and say, no, we're not happy with this. It seems to me the police are thinking, we won't be criticised for heavy-handed policing of people at St George's rally, because most of the mainstream media and commentators and politicians will go, oh well, they're just a bunch of bigots and racists. That is the view of anyone carrying a St George's flag. We were discussing this on the show yesterday. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that a lot of people, the great and the good, think that. But if it's people who've got a cause that either we agree with, like an eco cause or Black Lives Matters, or it's a cause where it involves ethnic minorities, so the pro-Palestinian, we just get a little bit anxious. We just don't want to do anything wrong, and we'll tiptoe around. At which point, you're literally saying that you face completely different policing in this country, depending on what you believe, and even down to your ethnicity or your religion, for goodness sake. That cannot be acceptable.
Yeah, I understand the sentiments and people adopting those, but at the same time, discretion is absolutely vital. And I feel the police are between a rock and a hard place very much on this. Again, going to
Are
another
they?
issue, it's
I don't
historic.
accept that, Hamish. They're not between a rock and a hard place. They could just do their job.
Well, they've still got to make that choice. And in fact, I was going to mention the issue on Clapham Common a few years ago, and there was comment made that the police went in to disperse the crowd, rightly or wrongly, and that there was comment they got that wrong. So here we are with the Palestinian demonstration. They're making their point. They hadn't gone in. So again, they've got that wrong, also, so people say. And now the activities on the St George's Day rally, I think that's what it was, as opposed to a parade. They did go in a bit heavily. They had the intelligence, and they felt that was appropriate. And I reiterate, it's a matter of discretion, and it's a matter of getting it right to stop it kicking off and developing into something quite nasty.
And